Hi, this is Kristen here. Welcome to another process video, and today I am completing a layout for Mix It Up Monday. That's a hop hosted by Tara from the Paper Snob, and this was the inspiration sketch that she included. And so for Mix It Up Monday, you're supposed to use different types of mixed media within your layout. So you could use stitching, you could use gesso, stencils, texture paste, paint, inks, pretty much the sky's the limit. I don't do a ton of mixed media on this. I just was like kind of in a little bit of a creative funk with mixed media at this point. So, but I wanted to at least get a little bit worked in. So I really loved the sketch that she included, so I really wanted to play along. And so I pull out some Distress Oxide in Broken China, and I'm just testing this little strip out to make sure I even like how it looks before I kind of commit to doing that whole strip. Because if I didn't like it, at least that part would be hidden behind, pictures and things like that. So I'm just holding up the pictures with the main paper here just to make sure I like how it looks. And I chose Broken China because the pictures that I'm documenting are of my middle child, so my younger son. He loves blue. And so I was going to do a layout of his first day ever of any kind of school. So it was his very first day of preschool. And he was super nervous, so. And we had like a little sign where it kind of said his age, who his teacher was, what he wanted to be when he grew up, and he kept trying to hide behind it when we were taking pictures of him, so. This stencil was a stencil I purchased from Amazon. I've included in the link below the Instagram members who are playing, and also Tara has a playlist for others who have YouTube channels that are playing along with Mix It Up Monday. So if you would be so kind to stop by and watch their videos and check them out on Instagram, I am sure they would greatly appreciate that. And the paper that you see here is it's an Echo Park line. I believe it was called Back to School. I'm not 100% sure on that, so I will look it up and link it down below. I also pull in some ephemera pieces from Book Fair, which is Simple Stories' newer line. That probably came out probably a couple months ago. The color schemes between both of these collections kind of reminded me of each other, so I felt like they would work really well together. I end up taking that paper and cutting a little bit more of the ends off of it just because I wanted a little bit more of the yellow paper to show. Because initially I was going to put it right behind the photographs, but then I decided I thought it looked better behind this kind of notebook paper. So. I'm going to start getting these pieces adhered down. This is just some cardstock. This kind of like yellow looking cardstock was in my stash. And so I was trying to conserve some of this paper line because I wasn't going to use all of it. So rather than use the blue paper intact, since I was going to cover a lot of it up, I end up just cutting it in strips. And so I will always kind of pull some cardstock out of my stash that is in colors like I wouldn't probably typically choose or use. So and I think some of it too was like stuff that's been in my stash, like when you had to buy like the big packs of, I would go to Michael's and buy like big packs of just plain cardstock, and it was kind of like, color mix or whatever. So and since the top of the paper looks like torn notebook paper, I end up pulling out a stencil that I had purchased from Amazon. It was like a pack where I think I looked up like ripped edge die cuts or something like that. And so it was a pack that came with quite a few different like edges of paper where you could like use the stencil or the die cut to where it would look like you had ripped notebook paper. And so I had to run it through a couple times just because the die wasn't, obviously wide enough for the piece of paper that I was using. So that's what created the kind of torn edges there. And then I got those couple pieces adhered down, and now I'm adhering down the pictures, of course. I didn't choose to back them on anything because I felt like there was a lot of colors going on with this, and on top of that, I felt like it kind of fit perfectly onto that notebook paper, so I really didn't have much room to mount them on anything anyways. And now I'm just going and kind of trying to push up these edges a little bit and kind of distress the notebook paper. And then I'm going to pull in some embellishments. I think this was from the Echo Park cardstock sticker set that came with the paper. I don't think this was from book fair, but I could be wrong. Again, I'll link both down below, so that way if you were interested in any of the products, you could purchase them. I kind of had a hard time finding ephemera pieces for this because it was like for more mature students. So I was trying to go through and like find pieces that would be good for like a preschool age. And since I felt like I was really lacking in doing mixed media, I wanted to create a title. I didn't really have any like thickers or alphas that I liked to go along with the colors of that layout. And so I decided to make my own thickers by taking washi tape, and I believe this is from Bella Boulevard, and then I'm just taking the washi tape and adhering it down to just plain white cardstock. The die that you see off to the right hand side, that's a Hip Kit Club die set, and so I'm just gonna cut out my letters from that. And I feel like that's still working in some mixed media while using up some washi tape, because I've got so much washi tape and I just never use it. So I'm trying to come up with more creative ways to try to use it up. I honestly wasn't sure how this was going to turn out. I mean, washi tape's pretty thin, so I figured it would cut fine through it, but I wasn't sure like if the pattern would kind of translate over once the letters were cut. So it was just kind of an experiment to see, if I like how it looks. And I ended up cutting out some recording. I had actually done it originally the wrong way. I'd faced the washi tape up, and so of course it cut on the white cardstock side, and I was like, oops. But I set those pieces aside because I'm like, really, I could still use use them for a different layout. So of course this is a redone version of because I was like, oh, I got to put the washi tape face down. So anyway, so I end up getting them all cut out, and I really like the look of it. I think it really pops on the red, and it works in a little bit more yellow. And so my title is going to be First Day Jitters. So again, like I was saying, it was kind of tough for me to find like ephemera, because I kind of feel like some of it was for like, kids that were like more learning math, because it had like a lot of subtraction, addition, kind of ephemera, protractors, calculators. So I was trying to find more like, preschool age type pieces. So I ended up finding a few, and I feel like there's still some more that I could pull out. I just really, with this layout, I didn't feel like I needed a lot of clusters anyways, just because of the paper was layered. So I feel like sometimes when you have like a lot of layers to your layout with like the paper layering, I feel like a lot of time you don't need as many clusters. So I end up picking some more ephemera pieces out. So this owl, I believe, was from Book Fair. I pop him up on foam. So I'd done some of this off camera where I'd pick some of these ephemera pieces out. Sometimes I'll do that if it's kind of taking me a little bit of time to go through all my ephemera. I'll cut away from that because sometimes it gets, that can get kind of boring. First day, this I think was a banner piece that came in the Book Fair. Same with this little pencil holder. And then the little stars came from Book Fair too, I believe. The scalloped edge came from Book Fair, and I believe the little banner up at the top left did as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting the letters glued down. And I end up kind of keeping first day fairly like straight across. Like I kept it, pretty in line. And jitters, because I think of jitters like, you would be nervous and so kind of shaking, and that I do end up adhering that in kind of like a little bit of a wonky manner, just because I kind of felt like that made sense. And so here is the close-up, but then I had kind of a brainstorm. I was like, well, let me add some more mixed media on here. So I was going to have my son write my first day in his own handwriting with crayon, except for it took a little bit of coaxing to even get him to come up and do this, because I think he thought I was making him do homework. So I was like, I would have to get into the drawers to find crayons. And since he was already upstairs and kind of willing at this point, I was like, I'm just going to have him use the marker that I already had picked out to document. So, and of course, the one side of the marker is kind of a fine tip, and he feels like he's got to put a lot of pressure to write, and so it completely messed that part of the marker up. So I had to have him use the wider tip, and then I had to kind of go over his handwriting with the wider tip. And then I'm just documenting a little bit more information down here with, what was happening. And here are some close-ups. I think it turned out really cute. Didn't use a ton of mixed media on it, but I used a little bit nonetheless. So I guess I'm still kind of participating as best I could. Thanks for coming by to watch another process video.